Good morning,
Good afternoon.
good evening, wherever you are on our lovely planet. I'm Ariel.
I'm Shad. We are collectively the Canes.
Welcome to being here.
Yes, welcome to being here.
You know what?
No, what?
No need to worry
Um,
about worry.
Okay, why
As
not?
Bob Marley says, don't worry
Be
about a
happy.
thing, because every little thing gonna be all right.
Okay,
That's my kind of lame singing, but I don't worry about it.
no need.
No need. Uh, we were looking at this subject this morning.
Well, worry is always about some future something that potentially will distress or end your existence.
That being said, there are things to take care of. This is not, hey, I just ran out of toilet paper. I'm not going to worry about it because sooner or later you'll need the next roll. And if you don't take care of the items that need to be handled in a timely way, you will have consequences. And of course, there are bigger and smaller items to tend to, but
And bigger and smaller consequences.
that's right. But worrying is not necessarily part of the process. It's
Well,
just something we've learned.
let's look at the most effective way to get the most out of this podcast, and that's by listening. We rarely listen to one another. We hear what other people say, but we're usually busy thinking about other things as they talk to us because our mind is a very complex and busy place. And we usually agree or disagree with what's being said, and that keeps you from listening. If you have a point of view or position that you think is more important than another's position, then you will stick to your position rather than truly listen and hear everything that's being said because it may threaten your point of view.
The la 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 thing comes in.
I have a question about that. There's no green light on that camera. Are we operating off of our other camera?
Yeah, luckily it's audio and we may not use this. I'll fix
Okay,
it for the next
good,
segment.
good. I'm just noticing as I look at that because I prompt myself occasionally to look at the camera so people think I'm actually looking at them when I'm talking.
It's probably why it's so dark in here.
That
So,
probably is.
not going to worry about it because nothing we can. Oh,
Oh, you
see?
turned it
I
on.
just flipped it in the back. I'm so
Oh,
talented.
you are.
Ariel said, "Let there be light,"
And
lo,
there was
there
light.
was light.
But if
Good
you're just
question, though.
listening to this, you wouldn't have seen the change. In any event, listening is allowing a point of view other than your own in, rather than seeing whether you agree or disagree with it. It's about hearing it. Now, the interesting thing about listening is you become more informed. But the other thing is, it brings you into the current moment of your life when you let go of those positions or points of view that lock you in time and space.
It's also letting go of a narrower version of you. Because even if somebody's telling you the same or similar information, the you who heard that information before was a smaller version of you because everything expands. So there's potential of hearing a wider, deeper, even more meaningful, have a more meaningful exchange. So here we are. That doesn't mean that this particular podcast needs to be earth shattering.
Well, you know something else about listening.
What?
If you truly listen, it can eliminate worry. Because worry is the outcome.
Mhm.
You worry about outcomes. You worry about if you ask a question or ask for something and somebody else denies you that, then how will you maintain a relationship when you have a disagreement?
Mm.
See, and listening isn't about agreeing or agreement or disagreement. It's about hearing what's being said.
We had a conversation the other day with somebody who was pretty upset, and they wanted
Mhm.
to talk to us about it. And they couldn't speak to us about it until after work, their time, actually quite a bit later in the day, our time. So our minds wanted to worry what was bothering them, what was in their hearts and minds that was bothering them so much. It was so important to keep putting our attention back on what we were doing, going about our day. And then when they spoke, and of course they started with a lot of charge about
A lot
what
of
was
energy.
going on in their life, to really hear it and not take any of it in a personal way. Because when somebody's really upset and they're expressing it, whether it's about you or about something else, it's so easy to receive it in a way that you hurt yourself with it.
Or you defend yourself rather than listen.
It was so lovely to have this skill set of listening in place so that we could be of service to this person when they were so deeply upset. Shall we take our first listener?
Yes, that.
All right, Miss Valerie, welcome to being here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you guys.
Where are you zooming in from?
I am zooming in from Montclair, New Jersey.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So I love the topic of this show because I have traditionally just worried a lot and a lot and a lot. But I've worked with you guys and attended your seminars over the years, and they've made such a difference in my ability to come back to myself and listen, like you guys were talking about, and let go of that worry. But I wanted to ask you guys about something that I have been worried. That's been sort of a recent recurring worry for me. I'm on maternity leave. I have a 3.5-month-old son, and I'm going back to work in 2 weeks. And last week I got a call from my boss, to let me know that she has given her notice and she's leaving. So I'm very happy for her, and I don't know what it's going to look like when I go back, because our department was basically her and me and another person. So I'm excited because I think there's opportunity to grow into taking on new and more responsibilities. And I'm also a little scared, not so much scared, but like, can I do it? Will I do a good job? I get lost in those thoughts sometimes. So I would just love
You would have been lost with those thoughts anyway, Val, and you're just pinning it on your boss leaving, because somewhere in this transition from full maternity leave, where you really did disengage from work, and you worked part-time for us, and you totally disengaged from that, which, by the way, you set up beautifully. So it wasn't like we had to keep reaching out to you saying, hey, this thing isn't handled, where do we look for it? It was impeccably handled. But you're going into an entirely different time frame, and you've heard about difficulties from the mommies in your group.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, I belong to like different, like a lactation group, and then like other yoga with moms and babies. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very much, the culture in those groups is very much, there are problems. How do we not like overcome them, but like deal with them? There's a lot of problem and stress, and it's very, yeah.
But
It's
I find that really interesting. There's problems, and how do we deal with them? Or there's problems, and how about not having them?
Right.
Well, I see it, and I hope you don't personalize this, but I see it with the COVID epidemic. And I
Mm,
see it that currently there are vaccines that absolutely guarantee your health and well-being going forward in time. Nobody dies anymore if they have the vaccine. Nobody's hospitalized,
Or
or
very, very
very,
few.
very few if they have the
mm,
vaccine. And yet, there are people who believe whatever they believe that justifies not set, protecting the sanctity of their home, that
okay.
gamble with their health and the health of their families. And they don't take into consideration what will happen to their family if they get sick. And there are new variants now that are much more deadly and affect young people and are much more contagious. So I'm in a quandary. I don't worry about it, but I think, why not, for the sake of your universe and the well being of your universe, do something that doesn't hurt? Because I've had those shots and I didn't get, I didn't get sick or anything from it. There's no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no downside. And yet people refuse to eliminate the worry. So why? Maybe worry is something you want rather than something you don't want. Because if you don't want it, you don't have to have it.
I suspect that a lot of the people you, for instance, have been around who have these problems that they need to deal with, not even resolve, they have to deal with them. Uh, that has been their standard operating procedure into life. And now with a child, it's the standard operating procedure on kind of a bigger playing field, because you don't want to screw up your kids the way you think your parents screwed you up.
I can see that. Yeah.
What if it's easy?
What if it's all easy?
It was very interesting for us because we don't have a young child, but we do have a COVID kitten. And now she's no longer a kitten. She's a young cat. She's a year. We named her Baby, so it's really cool because we have our baby. And we're getting ready to travel more. And we had a friend came over, and you and Walt actually came over for a couple of days early on in November when we were gone for a couple of days. But now we're looking at, gee, what happens if we go to Germany? What happens for the month of Costa Rica? What happens if we go fishing? And it was so easy to want to worry rather than know that this is something we will resolve, but we don't have the information yet. So we kept talking about it. And Shai even said things like, I find myself wanting to resent our cat as if it is now hampering my ability to live my life. And we would laugh about it. And then we would look at different options.
But I meant it. I meant it. The reality is, this new being that lives in our house, I have to take care of. Now, of course, I chose it, but that doesn't mean that
in moments of contraction, he doesn't think life would be easier
if.
So
Right.
what was very interesting was we kept the conversation in the foreground, as in while we were looking how to resolve what could be an issue, we talked with it. We just mentioned it to friends. We mentioned it to our friends Susan and Michelle. We were out on walks. We talked to people. We're out on a walk.
And like Marley said, because every little thing is going to be all right. And we just bumped into somebody.
He said, oh, by
randomly.
the way, we have a cat and we're thinking of going on vacation. Do you know any cat sitters? We really know nobody in our area.
Yeah, and this This was 10 miles from her house
This was someone who
in
I had
Pennsylvania.
taken a picture of her
Garden.
garden and created a card for it and given it to her because I thought it was so beautiful. And I said, remember me, I'm the one who gave you the picture. And she's like, oh, yes. Do you think you could give me a copy of that? I want to have actual cards made to sell in our store because he has a little general store. Sure.
And by the way, do you know anybody who does cat sitting?
She said, yeah, I have a friend, Laura.
Well, she's
she
an
works
employee.
for us. She's really good. She used to be a vet tech. People love her. She'll be at work tomorrow. Go ask her.
Wow.
So it's handled.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she
But
was
it
a
handled
lovely,
itself.
it was a lovely lady. And the pull to worry before we have it handled was there. And then the pull to worry after, what if?
She isn't as nice as we think she is.
What if she's not available? What if we don't like her? What if? But there's something in there, Val, about being able to trust in the perfection of your life and that it will handle itself. You don't even have to do handling it. As long as you're attentive to it, it handles itself.
But this other thing, you're around people who have a point of view that the circumstances determine their well-being rather than the circumstances are what they are and you determine your well-being. And so it's easy enough to pick up all of their fears and worries. And if it wasn't COVID, it would be something else.
I want to go back to your boss leaving.
Yeah.
It's going to be better than ever.
Hey,
and how I know
maybe they'll give you her job.
It's possible. But what I know is if she's going to a place where her heart desires, that's always a better situation for the place that's left behind.
Cool. Yes. And she is. Yeah. And I part of me is like, do I go back early to pick her brain more? Do I, do more? But I like what you guys are saying, that it is perfect the way it is. And I can still, I'm speaking with her next week before I go back. And I think that I will have some time just to pick her brain. I know I will, between me, working with her and her leaving. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm excited about that possibility of earning that job, because it would be awesome. I love what we do in our department. And I don't know, part of me is like, I don't really know the details of what she did and what that job entails. I have a good sense, but yeah, this is already helpful listening to you guys. Yeah. And I think the last 3.5 months have been amazing and very different for me, in that spending time with my son and my husband in a new way, and also have been just an incredible experience, like having a baby, and transitioning to what that means, and being a parent. And when you talk about the women that I've been, because it mainly has been women, there have been some fathers and other parents that I've also spent time around, but there is I can see to no fault of their own, sort of pull to worry and stress and problem solution lifestyle. And I have invited all of them that I've been in contact with to come to your seminars, because they're virtual. You can come from anywhere in the world, and they just make such a difference. So,
but when you say you've invited them, I get that. But one of the things I noticed recently for us is we had a friend who was really interested. And so we invited him, and he was still really interested. So we invited him again. And then he was really interested. And then he said, okay, I'll come next week. Then he couldn't make it, and I'll come the following week. And in that week, we actually spoke with him, risked nudging him 5 times, because his life had enough entropy in it and if you don't know entropy, it's where things tend
Evolve
to devolve, or where
from
you're,
organized to disorganized.
and as much as people are interested in other possibilities, it many times sounds overwhelming or frightening, or oh God, not something new, or they have the concern they're going to find out what they think about themselves is true, which is that they're not that good as a mother, teacher, whatever they're, they're going to find out faults. And for us recently, anybody who has attended, who's been a guest of ours, has required us, some people, like I know our friend Amy often says to somebody, hey, you want to come? And they say yes. And then they show up. But I find a lot of people need
To be supported.
support along the way. So when you invite them and then they don't show, and you think, oh, they're not that interested, or I don't want to bother them, I'm not sure that's taking care of people truly,
Right.
because
Yeah, that's so true. I do have that thought that I don't want to bug them, but I know they truly are interested and would love, like, are excited about the possibilities. So yeah,
You say that you know that, and I know that you think that. But the reality is, people frequently say, oh, that sounds so great. I'll check it out. And
Yeah.
then their lives are complex and they get upset over things and they never get back to it. It's a very rare person who is enough self-motivated to, like our friend Harley out in Napanee, Indiana, who somebody gave him our first book, or one of our books,
Practical
Enlightenment. And he brought himself to New York City to a seminar with us. And he's motivated himself because he's interested in options and opportunities. Most people aren't. Most people are just trying to get through their day.
But even if they are in some areas, doesn't mean they are in all areas. Like, for instance, you talked to us about the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, which is where you work. And you often talk about different programs they have and how great they are. I haven't had inkling or an idea to initiate going up there and seeing what they're going to be offering in the future. But if you, and I've said to you, oh, wow, that sounds great, I should come sometime. But if you ever said, oh, look, Ariel, there's this happening, want to go with me? That one may be the one, it may not, but I might not ever go unless you actually
take her hand and drag her along with you.
Well, not really drag, but say, this is happening, I think you
lead
really
the
like
way.
it.
How's that?
I love that. Yeah, thank you. That's
and there's an element of pulling somebody in your wake. You create a vacuum and pull.
Well, we have the Olympics now that it's called drafting, where somebody is swimming and the secondary swimmer will go in their draft because their forward momentum pulls them along, takes less effort, and then sometimes they have a little more energy at the end and they can pull ahead. But if we're not in a competitive framework, then you can do drafting, so that the people who you've broken water for don't have to work as hard as you did.
I love that. Wow. Yes. And it's very relevant to what I do at NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, which is work with corporate donors and invite them to support us financially and share with them all the amazing things we're doing. So we show them the value of it. So that's really cool. Yeah.
I do see that about you in general, Val, that your enthusiasm has been tempered. And I'm not sure what that's about. I love it when you share, say, a picture of you and Logan or Walt and Logan or the three of you or whatever, or Logan himself. But it's almost as if you've told yourself you shouldn't be one of those parents who go, look at my kid, is the most beautiful thing in the world. Well, let it be the most beautiful boy in the world. There's nothing wrong with that enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have told myself things similar to that.
Yeah.
If not that, actually. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what's like wrong in my mind with that, but that rings really true.
Yeah. You're allowed to care.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
It's that time.
The time for what?
Our listener feedback spotlight.
What is that?
Well, I'm so proud of the people who listen to this show. And now we get to hear from one or more of them about what's happening in their lives with transformation by listening to this podcast and
what they've discovered about life, what they've discovered about their lives, that they are experiencing fun in their lives.
And that they want to share it with you.
Yeah.
This is Antje from Hamburg, Germany. Transformation has been such a gift, is still a gift to me. And what always comes to my mind is listening. I really think this is one of the greatest gifts that I experienced through transformation. That listening can be something different than I was brought up with. And there's so much more, but listening is something that just strives me every time when I think I got what's meant by really listening.
Do you want to have well-being with consistency? Connect with people all over the world from the comfort of your own home at Ariel and Shire's lively interactive Living Made Easy virtual seminars. Join any of their 2-hour online events or take a deep dive into the magic of being you at a virtual weekend seminar. Come on, let's connect. Find out more and register at transformationmadeeasy.com.
Well, if you'd like to join us in person.
Well, for a virtual seminar.
Yes, I can't invite you 5 times right now, but I want to let you know that you're most welcome this Saturday at the Living Made Easy seminar, or next Monday also. And then there is the Tuesday afternoon, and then there's creativity and intuition on August 7th and 8th. And I'm so excited we're doing this course. It's one of my favorites. I find intuition to be such an amazing tool. And it's fun too. If you want to know more about any of our courses, just go to our website.
Transformationmadeeasy.com.
All right.
Next guest.
Yes, let's have him. Hi, Dave. Welcome to being here.
Hi, guys. It's nice to be here. I'm in Winnipeg in Canada.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Welcome.
How big a town are you in?
Winnipeg is around 700,000 to 800,000 people.
700,000 to 800,000 people. That's a lot of people.
Much
That's a pretty
bigger
good.
than Milford, New Jersey.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes.
Like
it
several
is.
100,000, like 700,000 or 800,000. Yeah.
Oh, good. It's really nice to be with you guys. When I was invited to be a guest and I saw the subject was worry, I thought, I'm not a worrier. what do I have to worry about? And then I
So what do you
started
worry about, Dave?
everything.
What does everything consist of, though? Let's get specific.
Oh, it's
Less about for you, but more about people like, I don't worry. And then once that was the umbrella through which you had as a framework over your life prior to recording this podcast, you started looking through the lens of worry. And then you saw.
I saw all the ways that I worry about the future. I worry about, and the future has to do with everything, like my relationship with my girlfriend who lives in the UK, worrying about what it's going to be like when we haven't seen each other for many months, worrying what it's going to be like about when we actually see each other. My kids, I own 2 businesses. I'm an engineer with an engineering consultancy. I worry about, am I going to make a mistake on a project and it's going to cause issues, etc.
Well, let's stop right there for a second. Have you ever made a mistake on a project?
I have.
Did it get sorted out?
Yeah, they always get sorted out.
Well, did worrying change the outcome?
No, in fact, worry gets in the way of finding solutions.
Well, I have a question. If you're worrying, are you more likely to make a mistake in the first place or less?
More likely.
Because I think a lot of people think worry leads to being effective, but if you really stop and take a look and you're preoccupied with worries over here, you miss what you're doing right here, right now. And that includes your intuitive little nudges. Because I think lots of times mistakes we make they're like by the way, and we're disregarding them because we're off someplace else.
Yeah. What happens to me when I get worried is I start to shut down, and I start to, sometimes I'll literally shut down. I'll go and lay on the couch because I'm worried about what the possible outcomes might be. And I've seen this happening, and lately, probably for the last couple of years, I've seen it happening. And I pick myself up and I go back and look at what's in front of me. And that doesn't just go away, but I bring my attention to whatever it is in front of me. And eventually it goes away. The noise gets quieter.
Dave, you could look at it like life is like a roller coaster. Worrying about how you're going to handle the down at the bottom of that drop doesn't handle it. The only thing that handles it is you being there for it.
Or even being at the top of what the drop is going to feel like.
Right.
Right.
You can't imagine what it's going to feel like, because whatever you imagine isn't the physicality of it. So worrying really doesn't do much good at all.
I like you talk about how sometimes you actually just close down and you get on the couch because the idea of the things that you have to do, or the idea of the unknowns in a situation, when you're focused on those, they become overwhelming.
Or the not wanting to be told what to do by your life as things show up.
Like, for instance, in July, on the 9th of July, we were supposed to come to Canada to go fishing. And we didn't know until the 21st of June whether or not if that was possible. And we kept trying to discover whether or not information would come early. And it didn't. But it was really important that we not worry about either direction, but we make plans for either contingency and live our lives as if whatever answer came was our idea, which made it largely uneventful, And it wasn't upsetting when we found out we couldn't go. It was just the facts. And we still don't know whether or not we'll get the money back or we'll get it transferred to next year, because it remains to be seen how honorable the outfitter that we booked with is. But worrying about it is not going to help, and I suspect it will work out beautifully, and we'll be thrilled when we go next year.
Well, that idea that things work out, the things work out, is something that doesn't occur to me when I'm in the middle of the worry, but in my experience has always been the case. Like all of my ideas about the future, when I get to the future, how poorly things are going to turn out never happens.
Well, I think you're missing a step. You talk about the things you worry about. You haven't recognized there's a step before worry, and that is you're already upset. You only worry when you're upset. There are a set of facts. Like if we go back to our trip, the set of facts were that we had paid 50% deposit for a fishing trip, which may or may not happen depending on if the Canadian border opened to Americans. That's a fact. And we had no control over whether or not the Canadian border was open. Worrying about it or worrying about the financial investment would only potentially happen if we were upset. Otherwise, it's just an unknown that will be resolved the moment it's resolved. And also in feeding into that upset is our preferences, because we really wanted it to happen. And we had to keep stepping aside from our preferences and investing in what is, and knowing that it will turn out the way it turns out and not any other way.
That's just a beautiful, it's just a beautiful way of living. That,
well, you worry about things and they turn out.
yeah.
And then your mind has it wired that without the worry, it wouldn't turn out. So it perpetuates your worrying about some future event, right, rather than being with what's going on in your life in the current moment.
Well, you see it, anybody goes to a sporting event, they're rooting for their team. And of course, that's part of the fun. But the mind thinks if you don't root, they're going to lose.
Right.
And sometimes you root and they lose. So then you think, well, maybe I shouldn't root for them. And they win.
I feel a lot of gratitude towards you and our community. And I just want to say thank you. The ideas of transformation, resisting things and they stick around, life showing up exactly as it does, and being able to look at life without how things show up without judgment, are ideas that when I first met you years ago, I didn't understand what that meant. And it turned out I didn't really need to.
Well, I still have my preferences.
We fight, we have to, anything you resist, the three principles of instantaneous transformation, what you're referring to, and you said it very elegantly, by the way. The first of which, in a more expanded version, is anything you resist, don't like, don't want, sticks around, it dominates your life. But that includes your preferences. So you see something, like I see you, and if I have a preference that you take a certain action, mm-hmm. and you're not currently taking it, then when I see you, my preference gets between me and you, and it dominates my experience of you. And second, life shows up exactly as it does. And third, anything you see without judging completes itself in that moment.
But you see, my preference is strong.
The force is strong within him.
And, I see what I believe is important, and I want you to do it. It's that simple.
Yeah, I want our government to open the border.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, what's stopping them from opening the border? Let's investigate this thing that you say you want.
Things that are completely out of my control.
No, you're not looking.
But specifically,
That was it. But specifically, what is stopping them from opening the border?
COVID is.
Uh-huh. Have you had your shot?
I have. I actually had my second recently.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Then you have become part of the solution
Mhm.
to the border opening.
They were waiting for the vaccination rates.
They're
to get
waiting.
high enough in your country to
Yeah.
make it make sense for them to open it.
See, I was under the misunderstanding that you hadn't.
Oh. No, as soon as I possibly could.
Well, I'm glad you told me that, because that has been coloring my interaction with you.
Really?
Oh yeah, of
Oh,
course
I knew
it
he
is.
had it, so
Not
I did.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I thought you said he lived in a remote area.
No. Different Dave. The Dave you were on the phone with the other day. I heard him say to you, I live in a remote area. I don't need
that
it.
Dave. And I thought it was this Dave.
No.
See, that's the problem with being a Dave. There's so many of you out there.
There are so many. Shai, it's funny that I've felt like there's something going on between us. And now that you say it, and
Well, that's the only thing that I had going on,
Well, he's
because
been
I
out-
was under the understanding you hadn't. And, I know you want to go to be able to go to England to be with Tanya, or have her come to Canada to be with you. But right now, those borders are shut down because of this pandemic, this plague that's killing millions of people right now. I mean, it's accelerating everywhere that people aren't vaccinated. And it's even going to accelerate where people are vaccinated in the areas that they're not vaccinated. So it's like, I have a preference. My preference is the well-being of the people I care about, and you are one of them. So when I was under the misunderstanding that you hadn't had a vaccine, I was, see, and here's my problem. I don't want to interfere with your life.
And he doesn't want to change you or fix you or make you better. So suddenly there's this.
What do they call it? A conundrum, which is a big problem.
yeah.
Because I don't want to try to influence you, and yet the seer in me that sees where things go is screaming, "Hey, man, get this thing. It won't hurt you, and it will make your life
And
easy."
what would your sons do
Without
if they
you?
lost you?
That's it.
Yeah.
So I had all that going on, and it was a misunderstanding, but it was a good misunderstanding. I like that I had that misunderstanding, because there are people in my life that I can't say that to.
I love that you can say it to me.
Yeah, I love that you've made yourself, and I do mean you've made yourself available to listen, because you have to make yourself available to listen, because that part that wants to be right doesn't want to listen.
Mhm.
Okay? And you have to override that internal need to prove yourself right and others wrong to have a life.
Well, it happened the other day when you were speaking with our other friend Dave, and he's like, "No, I live in a remote area."
Oh yeah. Well, I have so many Daves in my life. I have
All of whom he loves, by the way.
That's right.
Dave's a good name.
Yes.
But
I can think of 6 Daves immediately.
he could tell that this individual had no interest in hearing what he had to say. And so it was very important. And I was listening to the conversation because he was on speakerphone and I was up in the office and they were pretty close. I said, I'm not going to press you on this, but it's clear what my opinion is. And he's
Right.
like, oh yes, it's clear, but
Well,
I'll think about it someday.
here's something that just came up that I noticed I used to worry about, and sometimes I still do, and it's honesty. When Shai and Arlie, you guys have spoken to me in so many ways over the years that have literally saved my life. My life was going in a very strange, difficult direction, and what you have said to me in honesty has had a huge impact on me. And I used to be afraid of what that honesty, what being honest would bring. And when somebody was honest with me, my perception was that it would be hard to hear. And as you guys have spoken to me, even as you speak to me now, early on, my initial reaction was, this is going to hurt. And it never has.
Well, that's the way the mind works. It's expecting a problem.
And expecting pain.
And here's the thing. I love that you're talking about this, because I do believe our universe supports us. When you don't try to manipulate to get what you think will make things better, or what you think will make you happy, but allow life to take care of you as it so often does. But when you manipulate things to get what you want, there's always an equal and opposite reaction from the universe. Because once you manipulate it, once you do something to change something, well, now you've created energy out there. And I don't know.
I just want to go back to this idea that the truth hurts, either to say it or hear it.
It only hurts if you resist hearing it.
But I'm thinking about it now in terms of saying it also. Like we'll hold back a little piece because we don't want whomever to know what our truth is, because we think they may reject us. It wasn't too long ago, our friend Zoe, who has a master's in special education, and she's a math special education teacher, and she went back to school and got a second master's in art. And she's a very talented artist. That's always been her passion. And so she decided that after being in a school for, I believe, 4 or 5 years, that she wanted to look for a new job as an art teacher. And she was very afraid to tell them. She was worried about telling them, worried about their response. And it was very interesting when she got herself centered. She made the appointment to speak to the administrator. She had the conversation, it turned out, with the vice principal of the school. And she told her, and the vice principal said to, from what Zoe told us, we're so happy for you. This is your passion. You're going to be great. It's a loss for us, but you're doing the absolute right thing. We wish you the best.
Well, the other thing is this: honesty in relationship really works. Because if you withhold anything, that is always between you and the other person. It may not be spoken, but the fear of it being discovered then gets spoken.
And it could be even like, hey, Tanya, it's been so long since I've seen you. What if you don't like me anymore? What if we get together and we have nothing in commin? I keep having these really weird ideas,
That
what
pretty
if you don't
much
like my
says that.
body?
Yeah, it does. We had exactly that conversation recently.
Well, good for you.
And you see that communication, the honest communication, the open, complete, honest communication leaves the space for love to show up. The withholding of communication
guarantees the thing you're worried about is going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you said before, it doesn't hurt to hear the truth. It doesn't. But sometimes you have to have compassion for yourself and take a breath and listen. Because your fear that it's going to be bad is always much worse than the reality of what's said. And the other thing is, what you want are your preferences. Your mind is what generates those preferences, not your being. The being can be satisfied in almost anything, any circumstance. The mind has the idea, well, when I get this, then life will be better. Now, that didn't stop me from buying a new fishing rod.
Yeah.
And then he had the preference, I would like it too, but its action is not one I prefer, but that's often the case. I like a very different feel. So it's good though, because then I never steal it from him.
That's true.
It's always that benefit.
But there are some rods that we both enjoy using, and she steals those from me.
Those ones are
I broke the last one that she stole from me though, because she wasn't using it. I was, and it broke.
Yeah, so see?
But we'll get it fixed. Everything can be fixed.
Before we go today, Dave, I just want to say something to you. Don't worry.
It's good.
It's good. And by the way, that's always something when you're collecting a thought with someone like Tanya. I have something I want to say to you. And I go, don't worry, it's good. It's just going to take me a minute to get it out, because otherwise her mind's going to go
To the worst.
I'm not coming here. We're breaking it. Your mind goes to as much as COVID pandemic has been a challenge, and how much I wish the Canadian border was open. I've enjoyed this time frame, not only today, but over the past year and a half or so with you. I feel like we're closer to you than ever. It's been such a delight. And you even took us on a virtual tour of Winnipeg. And I thought of you. We just got new bikes. We're picking them up hopefully today. And you showed us a bike sculpture. And so I was thinking of you when we got our new bikes.
Thank you. It is surprising how connected I've felt to this community, and to even to Tanya, in Oxford. I love it. But you know what? When you say that, I think there are some other people might mishear it. I think you've actually, in my experience from things you've said, been even more connected to the people who you are there with, your business partner, your kids. It's not like, oh, this community is the new church of transformation. That the connection you're feeling here, from what you've been telling me and what I've seen, translates everywhere, as opposed to only in this segment. It's true. It's true. And I don't want to be mistaken to say that I hope that COVID continues, because I don't. But I have appreciated the unexpected connections that have happened during this time when I thought it would be different. Yeah, when we worried about it. Right. Don't worry about worry.
It'll work out.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, if you enjoyed the podcast, you can leave a review on your favorite podcast app, and you can also share it. You can share it on whatever social media platform you have. And of course, sometimes you need to encourage people more than once if you're hoping to have them partake of the things that you care about. We will be back next week. Next week's show is Don't Just Do Something, Stand There.
We'll figure out what that means next week.
Yes, you will. Well, you may not figure it out, but you may experience it. We'll be back next week.
Yes.
So come on back.
And don't miss
being here.